welcome to the show. I'm Vila Bianca.
I'm Eric Murphy.
This is Skeptic Generation,
and we need to talk.
Hi. Yep. Hello. I feel like that's a holdover from our other show where we hadn't actually seen each other all week, and we got to the studio and we sat down after having completely separate lives, and we were like, "Oh, hi, yeah, you, the person I do the show with. How are you?"
Yeah.
And now that's a little bit odd, considering
we're engaged and we live together.
We woke up together.
You know what's funny is that in the comments there are going to be people that are going, "What? I didn't know that."
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
But hey, how's your week been?
It's been okay. It was weirdly relaxing. Last Sunday I did a bunch of extra work for work, and then that meant that I got a lot of free time this week.
Okay.
Which was nice. How about you?
I've been working on a big project at work, but other than that, it's been doing really, really well. My partner has been taking the time to just spoil me lately, and I'm
we had Eric Day yesterday.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
It was fun.
Yeah, but
leave your comments about what you think Eric Day entails below.
So, hey everyone. Do we have any really big announcements?
You were ready for a big announcement.
I'm not.
You were just all right, we're going to go into this with heart and emotion. Wait, we don't have anything to talk about.
Yeah.
All right. So no big announcements, just a lot of kind of housekeeping stuff before we can get started. First of all, if you would like to talk to us, please do call the show at 585-526-8774 or use the link tiny.cc/callsg. Both of those should be in the description. We pay for it on our end, so it's not going to be any cost to you, even if you're international. Feel free to call. We are kind of beholden to the kinds of callers that we get. Last week was interesting. We are going to move away from topics relating to LGBTQ stuff. We love the community. We rep the community. We are part of the community. And this is a faith show. We talk about things that have to do with unsubstantiated claims and faith, and kind of lumping LGBTQ stuff in there is not the direction we want to go, because that's not faith-based. So if you have questions about faith, about belief, about cosmology, counter-apologetics, let's dive in. Let's talk to you. The only other thing, Eric, I guess would be the Patreon plug right before we get started.
Absolutely. If you like what we do and you want to support us, if you want an ad-free version of the show, please consider becoming a patron. It would really, really go a lot to helping us. Our Patreon is patreon.com/skepticgeneration. That's patreon.com/skepticgeneration. As I alluded to just now, we do ad-free versions of the podcast and this live show. And we also do other things.
You get to see us be dorks behind the scenes as we take photos for the thumbnails. Somebody asked where the screenshot of the face that I was making on a thumbnail was in the episode. They were like, I can't find this moment where V does this thing.
Right.
Here's a little behind the scenes spoiler for you. We were clipping actual reaction shots from the episode, but because you'll know the little Chiron on the bottom.
Yeah.
Kind of
let me throw one up just to give an example.
It makes it difficult to cut those out. It's very possible one of us is off to the side or moving or, So what we ended up doing is actually taking a little bit of extra time after the show to continue to record ourselves and just go through and make thumbnail-worthy, higher quality reaction shots. So if you're not going nuts, it wasn't in the episode. If you have ethical problems with that, then I'm sorry.
I mean, we're able to record at a higher fidelity than what we're able to stream out, which means that, we're able to get a much more crisp image for that.
If you could see the glorious camera that we are looking into right now, you guys, we need to make use of it in its fullest quality in some way. We also have Moko on the show today. A little bit of a biting demon.
This is our crew cat.
Yeah.
Okay,
She's not a crew cat. She doesn't do work.
that's fair.
She's a pillow princess.
Fair.
All right. We do have a couple callers on the line, and I'm very excited about it. Let's talk with Lisa in Colorado first. Lisa, you say that you're trying to figure out how to maybe start deconstructing or deconverting your faith and maybe the things that are holding you back.
Lisa? Oh, what if we're still muted to
We
callers?
are still muted.
Oh, we're still so muted to callers.
We were muted to callers this
That
whole
was my
time.
bad. I apologize.
Lisa, please do not feel bad. That was totally on our end.
Yeah, that's my
Hello,
fault.
welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. That is one of the shortest waits I've had in my whole life.
Well, that's good. That is good. You called in early, which means you get primo airtime. Lisa, what can we help you with today? What's your question?
Well, I'm calling as a follow-up to a conversation that you and that you folks had with me back last year on Talk Heathen.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I think it was back in February. I don't remember for certain. But the title that the thumbnail video ended up with was "Feeling Betrayed by God," and I had described myself. I had been raised as Lutheran, and then in my teens, my family switched to Pentecostal. So I'm just trying to give a quick little background on that, just as a bit of reference. And anyhow, one of the things I did shortly after speaking with you folks on Talk Heathen is I ended up calling Freedom from Religion and speaking with somebody there. And one of the things that person and I discussed was what I identified as the most, I don't even know how to put it. What is making it extra difficult for me to go through this deconstructing process? What's the main thing that's holding me to religion, specifically Christianity? And back then, at that time, I said the one and only thing that's tying me to faith is the fear of hell. However, what I've discovered recently, and it's as a result of all this just ongoing journey of exploring things and investigating things, what I've come to realize is the issue of hell. Sure, that can be very frightening, but it turns out it is completely incidental to what really is tying me to faith.
Oh, okay.
And it's such a, I hate to use the word revelation, but I have to admit that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
And it turns out that what was even more deeply ingrained in me from day one, even more ingrained than the whole issue of hell and all that, is the fact that faith, in a sense, or at least as I was raised on it, it kind of gives you a purpose, and it makes you believe that maybe there is a reason for everything that happens, or why certain things happen at the perfect time. So what I've come face to face with recently is the realization that the fact that may not be true. There may not be a plan, or there may not be an overseer, helping you through life and things like that. And this is something I was completely unaware of in terms of myself.
Yeah.
That is a much stronger issue to process through and to possibly deconstruct. And because that realization is impacting me so heavily, I thought this might be a good time to call up you folks and chat about this and see what thoughts you might have, just in case maybe you've gone through something similar.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm all ears.
Yeah, honestly, Lisa, that is a huge revelation. And yeah, absolutely use that word, because that's what that is. I think that one of the benefits of having stories more accessible from people who have left a faith, especially Christianity here in the US, is that we get to hear some of these stories. We get to hear like, oh, it was the fear of hell that kept me there for so long. And that can be very helpful, but it can also point you in the wrong direction when you are coming to terms with it yourself. If you're like, oh, something must be holding me back, I'm feeling like I can't get through this, maybe it's this thing that I've heard other people dealing with, or maybe this is the issue. But you've gone beyond that, and you've actually identified what is actually keeping you from fully letting go of this. And by itself, that is huge. And I think that you've made enormous progress, it sounds like, even from the year that we've spoken.
Yeah.
I do want to kind of validate that particular fear as well, because the fear of hell is objectively awful for anybody who has to deal with it. The fear of purposelessness, of there not being a plan or the promise that everything is going to work out just fine, is also horrifying. That is not a lesser fear. It's not something that is easier to get over. It is just as terrifying to come to that realization, maybe even more so because you are living in this life that prior to this realization, you thought there was a driver in the driver's seat. It turns out that there isn't. So now the panic kind of sets in. So I do want to validate that as well, that this is a reasonable and very rational fear to have as you're coming out of this. Eric, I know that you were like really vibing with this as she was talking. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I mean, the first is I did absolutely wanted to do that. I wanted to validate that it is such a big deal. And I've talked to a number of people. Heck, I've talked to some Christian apologists, like pastors, who have said, oh, what convinced me to stay a Christian was the idea of not having purpose. And it was just a fear of confronting that idea. And they were so proud of it, like, oh, that's why I believe in God. And it doesn't, on reflection, it really doesn't make any sense. You find yourself in a position where now you need to contend with something you never had to contend with before. But there are a couple of things that, after having gone through it, I would love to give you a couple of tools that helped me.
Oh, marvelous.
Cool. So the first is this idea that if you don't have a purpose given to you, then everything is worthless, there's no point, and might as well pack it in. And that carries so much packaged into it that you do not need to accept that. And hearing that from other people, all that means is they haven't thought about it very hard. The idea that you need to live according to somebody else's script, number one, removes all of your autonomy. It doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what you strive toward. You're just some automaton if you're living by someone else's grand design. But if instead, and I don't like Kant very much as a philosopher, but if you look up Kant, the way he talks about people as means and ways, and viewing people as givers of purpose, I think that's a great place to go. It's not so much that you need to search for someone else to give you purpose or some other plan to give you purpose, but when you give yourself purpose, it's scary, but when you act on that purpose and you see yourself growing towards the ends that you've created for yourself, it is rewarding in a way, Lisa, that I never knew about. It is truly an amazing thing, and I highly encourage you to give that a shot, because it is so nice to look at a thing and go, you know what? This has value in my life. This person I love has value in my life. This, whatever I'm doing, I find value in it, and I'm giving it that value. And because of that, it is enough. And it really is a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm very encouraged by that. I'd hate to say that was a marvelous sermon. I don't want to do that to you, but no, I'm just saying. Well, I guess a good way to express it is to say thank you for that, because I'm already experiencing value from what you just said right now.
Yay! Then it has worth. And you know what? The fact that it has worth to you, Lisa, is wonderful. You are giving value to that, and I sincerely appreciate that. That gives me warm fuzzies. I'm glad. In fact, other kind of philosophers, you're looking at nihilism. You're looking down the barrel of nihilism here. I suggest, if you're the reading type, to read Albert Camus, the Myth of Sisyphus. It's this idea of absurdism, that you do something knowing that there's not a grand purpose or a grand design, but that it's a value that you give things. And it's not that you think that you're somehow giving grand purpose to things. You know that on some, galactic scale, we're just a blink of an eye. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to enjoy our lives the way we want to enjoy our lives and make the best of it. And I don't know. I really enjoy that philosophy personally.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you. Eric, I was wondering if you could please repeat the name of the first person you mentioned, because I didn't hear that name clearly. It was a philosopher, I believe.
Kant.
Oh, okay. I don't believe I've ever heard of that person.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Kant actually was a religious person. He believed that God gave us purpose. Treat that as you will. But the idea that we in turn give things purpose, right? We view each other as purpose givers, is something that I really, really like. So again, I'm not going to say take all of it, but
well, that's a whole mental shift that also happened to me, where I realized that I could take bits and pieces from different philosophies and different worldviews, and I didn't have to adopt one person as the ultimate source of truth, right? So yeah, if that's what inspires you about Kant, take that and then go find something else that works with that piece of inspiration and build your worldview from there. It's a journey, but it's so worth it.
Oh, and attack the hell out of it. I mean, really, when you find something that feels good, that's the time to just pummel it to death. And if it can stand up, it feels a lot more comfortable holding those positions, because you really put them through the ringer. You should see the way we do that in our house. It's intense, but we do our best. V will come up with something, or I'll come up with something, and the other person will just hammer that idea for a little while and
see if it survives.
Yeah.
Lisa, one more thing before we let you go, and that is just, there is a reason why certain religions like to rely on the idea of a plan and things all working out for the best. And part of it is because it does feel better to feel that way and to believe that. But it also serves a second purpose, and that purpose is to keep you complacent. And so if you can go through your life believing that everything's going to be okay, things might be rough now, but they'll work out, there is a chance you're not going to do something about it. And that's the goal, is to keep you from going out and doing a thing on your own to make things better. And so when you come to this revelation that you have, that, oh, maybe there isn't someone in the driver's seat, maybe this isn't part of a plan, what that does is that breaks those shackles for you, and that allows you to go say, all right, so what am I going to do about it? Even if it's just being a little bit of a nicer person today to like a stranger, or, you know, donating $5 to this charity, or whatever it might be, you taking ownership of that plan and saying, okay, I disagree with how things are going. I'm going to go do something about it, is one of the most empowering things.
Oh my gosh, you're absolutely right, because you're not waiting for the plan to come to fruition that somebody else put into place.
You are going to go make a plan and make the world a better place yourself. And I think that's amazing. So do with that as you will. Thank you so much for calling back in. We loved hearing a little bit of an update, and it sounds like you're making great progress.
And thank you for following us over. We're glad that you found us.
Oh, so am I. So am I. I was wondering, I didn't see you on Talk Heathen anymore, and I was wondering what happened. But then good old YouTube just popped up one of your videos.
Nice.
And I said, okay, great. I found Eric and me again. So let me just call and chat.
Yay.
Well, it was enjoyable to get to talk to you again. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, folks. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye.
What a sweet person.
Yeah.
That was really nice. That gave me good warm fuzzies.
I like that she said it. You gave her a little bit of a sermon. You do go into sermon voice.
You know?
You would have been a good like
Pastor?
like not senior pastor, but like the one that they tap for the special occasions. That like all of
The one that comes out when the music gets low and they start passing the hat?
Yep. All of the older folks would just like swoon, be like, oh, it's Eric. A little bit of a crush. A little bit of a
Oh no.
pastor crush.
You're biased though. You like me.
That's fair. All right. Who would you like to talk to next? We have a couple of theists on the line, which is exciting.
We really do. So the interesting thing is I had titled this episode, Faith. Huh. What is it good for? And I don't know if anybody got that, but it was on my, like the song was on my head yesterday. And somebody called in to talk about it. Situations where faith is useful over evidence. And I'm just like tickled. I love those kinds of conversations. That is esoteric in the way that I just, I'm excited. So
It's not really a sell to be like, oh, we're about to dive into a really esoteric call, you guys.
that's my jammy. I'm saying that's my jams. I love it. It's.
All right. We'll keep it less esoteric and more focused on the down-to-earth applications of things.
Why you gotta?
Just to take everyone
why you gotta
along
do
with
that?
us.
Why you gotta?
Because it's a good topic, and we want
it is a good
everyone to
topic.
enjoy it. All right.
Fine.
JB in Colorado, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well.
You have beautiful, crystal clear audio. I'm
Oh, thank you. It's the let me do a. It's the Focusrite Scarlett.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
No.
think,
All right.
Or it's just my voice.
One or the other. We're enjoying it though.
If you're using a Focusrite Scarlett, that means you're using an XLR mic. What mic do you got?
Oh, it comes with it. It's the one that came with it. So
Okay.
it's like the Studio Scarlett one,
Nice.
which is, seems to work just fine.
Oh, you are going to be a dream to edit after the show. Love it.
Welcome, JB. What can we help you with today? What's your question? What do you want to talk about?
Well, I like the title. Obviously, I think you're being that he said it was a joke with the song. What is it good for? I'm assuming you're saying good as synonymous
Absolutely
with like
nothing.
Usefulness. Or good for nothing. Okay. And so, yeah, I had a couple of situations. One category would be like, let's say, kind of like a mad scientist character, 1,000 years ago, dreaming up some possible apparatus or something, some theory, and there was no actual evidence for it at the time. But he went with intuition. He went with something beyond or not quite identical to evidence, and his faith in that kept his head to the ground. Messing with things, tinkering, writing stuff. But there's still no evidence. All of his friends are like, you're a little out there. Maybe you should stop. And he doesn't.
Okay.
And so, in some sense, faith in that sense, it's useful for him, especially if he gets to a point where he does find evidence. So his pursuit of evidence isn't necessarily evidence-based itself, right? His desire to move forward, he's probably using a little bit of induction at least.
Sure.
But he's not necessarily appealing to any evidence because he doesn't have any yet. He's just he's going along.
Hey, you know what? Let me give you another example. So how about alchemy? Alchemy is something that a lot of people, followed their gut on. They used intuition because they knew that they could turn lead into gold, that they could transform matter using, powers unseen. And it was that desire and acceptance of alchemy as true without evidence that led to people wasting their entire lives on a thing that didn't turn out. Like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't follow where your curiosity leads, but I think we're using the same definition, right? Is your definition of faith belief without evidence?
Yes, belief without evidence.
Okay.
Yeah, and your example would be an example of when it didn't work out. But I guess if there's an example where it does work out, they're both kind of on the same path with different outcomes, right?
Right. And so if that's the case, then what is faith good for? If faith can go either way like that, like
I guess
go ahead.
The question is, I guess I would say if you're saying what's the word good is useful in this case, in this context. Yeah. Well, I guess either or both. Your example of them failing is actually still useful because then you negate a process. Their pursuit with their faith was actually useful, not to their advantage, but to general knowledge, the advantage to general knowledge. So suddenly you're saying, oh, that doesn't work. Similar, like remember bloodletting?
Yeah.
And like the leeching stuff. Well, the correlation was that it worked. And so it looked like, even based on, a vague scientific methodology, there was some established X causing Y, and it ended up not being exactly true in that sense. But it was still true, but for other reasons. And so, it's another example of pursuing something, in that case, the scientific method, even though they were wrong about the actual causality of it. So they still pursued it.
Do you think that faith is required to encourage someone to pursue an idea? Because I would think that, like in your examples, all of those things, right? Pursuit of knowledge and advancing, our understanding of things doesn't require believing the conclusion to be true without seeing the conclusion yet. And
I guess I would probably partly agree with that. I think you would say you would have faith in the process before you agreed with the conclusion.
But I don't have faith in the process. I have a lot of experience in understanding that the process continuously and has been shown to work. I don't need faith.
Would you say that you have faith in your experience then?
Are you asking me if I'm a little confused. Could you phrase that maybe differently?
Let's say we do the scientific method. Mm-hmm. That requires us as a participant, in this case the scientist or the observer of the results, mm-hmm. we have to have faith in our reasoning to interact with what we call evidence. So when we do an experiment, right, and we could be wrong, right? Our experience,
absolutely.
You appeal to your experience, and your experience of it all could be wrong, correct?
Absolutely. We do the best we can with what we have. It's why we reach for capital T truth and wind up with lower t truth. It's just the best that we can do. So in my experience, right, my understanding of things and application of that has proved fruitful. I'm going to use it because it's the best tool that I have. And so, again, that is evidence-based, right? Like, I didn't learn how to use my fingers until, as a baby, I practiced using my fingers. I didn't learn to walk until I practiced walking. I don't need faith that my feet are going to move when I walk because I've spent a lot of time learning how to walk. And then I spent a lot more time learning how to learn. And so I'm not using faith. I have practice. I have actual practical evidence that shows that those things have and continue to work.
I would say you have, in that instance, you have faith in the past and your recollection of the past. But you said something before. You said,
Hold on.
It's the best way. It's the best way.
Hold on a second. You're saying I have faith in the past. So do you think that the universe just kind of snapped into place? Like, is this the transcendental argument for the existence of God?
No. We're just talking about faith. We're talking about induction. We're talking about our recollection of the past, our experience of the present, and our concepts about what the future will likely be like.
Okay, but you're calling into question my ability to understand the world around me, right? That sounds like a presuppositional apologetic.
Yeah, JB, if you pull out grounding at any point,
well, no, he already is. So JB, how do you know that you're actually talking to another person on the phone?
How do I know it?
Yeah.
Well, I have faith in my experience. Because there's no other way to know without appealing to your experience directly, right?
So,
but there's no evidence for it, right? It's not because evidence would be secondary to my experience. There's no evidence of my experience because that would be referencing my experience.
JB, can I phrase this back to you and see if I'm on the right track?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it sounds like you're viewing a dichotomy, right? So for people who are watching, I want you to be able to follow along. There's this thing called the problem of induction. How do we get to experiences which are not, concretely reliable to objective truths, right? Because we can make objective arguments about things, but there's this line, there's this limit. And because of that, we call it the problem of induction. It is just not solved. And so it sounds, JB, like you're kind of rectifying that by splitting it into two categories. One of them is empirical, and that would be the realm of objective truth or objective facts. And the other would be the realm of our personal experience. And in experience, you think that faith is the operator there. Is that about right?
I think either way you frame that, faith is the starting point for all of us. That we start with faith.
Okay.
Like for instance, you use the term objective truth. You believe objective truth exists in a way, but not in a way a refrigerator exists. Correct?
I mean,
I think this is going down the exist in terms of exist as a concept versus exist as a physical object thing.
Oh, got it.
We've talked about this at length,
right.
JB.
Yeah. I was going to say, a refrigerator can exist as a physical object, and I can think about a refrigerator in a way that the concept of a refrigerator exists. So that just completely confused me, JB.
Sorry. I'm just asking if you believe truth is objective, right? And to some level, as you mentioned before, maybe you can't apprehend the capital T, but you get a lowercase t that's good enough, right?
That's the best we can do, yeah.
Yeah. And so I would say something like the concept of truth, I would say we have faith in that as a concept, but there's no evidence of it itself as a thing empirically, right?
I define truth in a different way. I define what is true is that which corresponds with reality.
I think what JB is saying here, though, is that you are making a claim that capital T truth exists, even though in that same sentence you are saying that there is no way to access or prove capital T truth because the only thing that we have is lowercase t truth. So JB, tell me if I'm wrong, but are you asking if the concept of capital T truth is a faith claim?
Yeah, I would say. I would say faith claim, capital T truth, and even if you're deriving lowercase truth from it, you're kind of in a paradigm that assumes capital T truth does exist in a way. Again, how you determine or define existence in that way is obviously a whole other conversation, and an interesting one too. But if you the lowercase truth also has an assumption there, because the definition, even though it's useful, truth is that which corresponds with reality. That presupposes reality is a precondition to describing it. So that means that reality existing in its way, right? Because there's a fundamental way in which reality needs to be in order for it to be described. But describing it.
How
would
do
be
you
a
know that? Hold
secondary
on, no.
act.
Hold on. That is an absolutely bullshit statement. How did you come to that conclusion that reality needs to be a certain way in order for it to be described?
How did I come to the conclusion that reality,
Needs
that
to
there
be
are
a certain-
preconditions to describing reality?
That it needs to be a certain way in order for it to be described, is I believe the words that you said.
Because I would say the regularity in nature, the laws of physics, they need to be regular before we can describe them accurately.
It sounds like you're assuming those are changeable. Do you have any evidence that those are changeable?
No, it doesn't. The claim of whether they're changeable is irrelevant to describing them.
Then that makes your statement irrelevant too, because you're assuming that it needs to be a certain way when you're all like, if it needs to be a certain way, but it can't be any other way, then what the fuck is your point? Like,
But if
okay,
it can be
cool, I
another-
guess.
If it can be
But
another
it can't.
way,
You just said that, JB. So what's your point? You just said it can't be another way.
Hold on.
Okay.
You're misinterpreting me.
Oh, go ahead.
For something to say something needs to be a certain way to describe it, that doesn't mean it can't be another way. It could be, there could be two ways things could be such that it requires describing, but it does have to be a certain way to describe it as it is.
Oh,
so I
consistently.
mean, I could describe in order for the arrangement of chess pieces on a board to be described, they have to be arranged a certain way, right? It's a precondition for describing it. That doesn't mean they can't be rearranged a different way, and I don't think that follows that. The conclusion you're cutting to is definitely not what I'm stating or claiming. I'm just saying that reality, if you say reality exists, right? That needs to happen first, right? In order to describe, in your view, things that correspond to reality, right?
Well, I think I can answer that by painting a quick scenario. Okay, so just imagine there is a room and we're all sitting outside of the room, and in the room is a chair. I send you in to look at the chair, you look at the chair, you come back, you describe the chair. I go in, I look at the chair after you come out, and I come back out, I describe the chair. We get 100 people, 500 people, 1,000 people. They all walk in, they see the chair, they describe the chair, they all walk out, right? So person X is sitting on the outside, they've never gone into the room, and everyone else is able to describe the chair consistently. And you go, oh, well, but what if you were dreaming to the first person? But what if you were having a psychotic break to the second person? Oh, what if, there was something in your brain that happened, some kind of glitch, and you just happened to hallucinate this chair, right? You can say that to everyone who walks out of the room, and that contrarian can say, well, maybe that chair is not in the room. But at a certain point, when you're comparing a thing to reality to decide whether or not it is true, if you're being a contrarian for contrarian's sake, then you're just, I don't understand what the usefulness of that is. And so when we're having this conversation about comparing a thing to reality and then going, well, what if it was a hallucination? The fact is, we live in a shared world with each other, and we use each other to bounce those ideas against so that we can,
hold on.
so that we
I
can
agree.
substantiate
I'm not going down that route though. It sounds like it, but I'm just I'm not actually arguing for that appeal to like, what if a brain of that, what if it's a simulation, bro, kind of thing. I don't take that. I think those end up being nonsensical for the same reasons that you're similar reasons as you're arguing there. So,
well,
but
it's not
even
just,
in that, even in that case, even if I stayed outside of the room, I would actually be putting my faith into your descriptions.
I don't think so.
So let's say a blind person can't perceive the physical world with their eyes, but they can do it with their ears to high level vibrations in any other way. But if someone described the reality to them, they are putting their faith in another person's experience, right? And so it doesn't end the problem, in my view, of placing your faith in some sort of source, right? Even sometimes outside of yourself, to even get to what you describe as truth, which is the description of reality itself. I think that even if I granted you truth is that which describes reality, and I just granted that and didn't question what reality is, then if I just accepted that, you're still putting your faith in meaning, language, all sorts of concepts that there are no direct evidence for without appealing to them.
What are you talking about?
Can I jump in here?
Do you have faith that words have shared meaning?
I mean, since we're using words, then obviously we're assigning them meaning. That's how that works. And I don't need faith because I was taught it in school. If it operated on faith,
that's a bad no. I don't need faith because I was taught it in school is not a good line of reasoning to go down.
When it comes to language,
also,
right?
Words are different. Also, words are different for different cultures.
Right. Let me jump in here real fast. Let me jump in here.
This is going to live in a place where people are going to say, Eric really fucked that up. Give me the opportunity to pull that back just a little bit. Okay. I learned sentence structure. I learned verbs, adjectives, nouns. I learned all of that. And it was very consistent, at least in a way. Like, we use language. It is a tool that we use. I don't understand how that requires faith. In the same way, when you're listening to those accounts of those people coming out of that room, you don't have faith that they're telling you the truth. You assign a degree of confidence to the claim, and that degree of confidence goes up as evidence becomes more and more available. There's no faith there. V?
Okay, let's shift.
I would like to jump in here real fast because I think we're going down a rabbit hole that could be avoided. So I think that, JB, you are using faith in the way that Eric is using confidence, and I think we're conflating the term, and it's causing a lot of confusion. So I would like to go with an example that you presented, JB, and get your take on it if I play in that space for a minute. So you said if you are blind, if you do not have access to one of your senses, you must have faith that the person who is telling you it's safe to cross the street is telling you the truth in order to take them up on that, correct?
Yes, and sometimes without evidence. Could be a stranger, a nice stranger.
Right. You don't know this person. They're saying, oh, here, I'll help you get across the street. Okay, I guess maybe I just have to put my faith in this for a moment. So let's live in this world for a minute, and let's say you've been through this, you've gotten really good at kind of like knowing who to trust, when to ask for help, when to put your faith in a stranger, and then somebody comes up to you and says, you won't believe this, but everyone's been lying to you and the sky is actually bright pink. Okay, so now you're at a place where you must operate on faith in the same way that you've been, but somebody is coming to you with a claim that up until this point doesn't have any ability to be substantiated and goes directly against what evidence you have collected through garnering those pieces of information from other people about the world. So how will this person who doesn't have access to their eyes prove or disprove or believe or not believe this person who says that the sky is pink?
They might. The method they take might actually be sort of learning more about people in general and getting a sense of people, right? So we the same way we use our intuition about people, we get like weird vibes. We could be wrong about our vibes, right? But sometimes we're not. And I wouldn't say that's like convincing every time or reliable every time, but sometimes it is, right? And so I think there's whatever method that they go through in your question, they're still going to have to put faith first, right, in their action toward it, toward that method. They're going to have to take a leap and go, well, I'm just going to I have to go with this method to determine, because they put a good conundrum right in front of me, but I still have to pursue something, right? And sometimes we're wrong the way we pursue it, and sometimes we're not. But whatever the answer is to that question is still a method that won't be evidence-based, right? It won't be, otherwise we would already know the answer to the method if it was evidence-based. In other words, like a wider claim, let's say science, would you guys agree that science is a great method toward truth?
JB, I do want to circle back because I don't feel like I got an answer. And I know that maybe the answer is I don't know, which is fine. How would you, as a blind person, determine if the sky were pink if one person told you the sky was pink and everyone else told you it wasn't pink? Would you believe that person?
I think I would my answer to the question is I would ask more about. Let's say there's 10 people, just for be simple. 9 people.
Yeah.
Said was it 9 people said blue and 1 said pink? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I would. I would have to be guessing if I didn't ask each of them more questions. But even that would be kind of like, in my view, you'd be getting a sense of person, right? You would get you would agree you and I pick up on deception in these weird ways that aren't necessarily empirical. They're like maybe cue-based, tone-based, and you could say, tone is a sound, so it's in a way empirical, but the meaning of tone isn't empirical. The way we pick up on these weird cues from people and we get different senses from people, that kind of interaction with humans, and I think it's fairly peculiar to humans as far as I know, that I would go to that. I would go, okay, if I was that person, I would go, well, this is a weird scenario. I'm sitting here stranded on the corner. Let's say crossing the street and the safety of crossing the street was dependent on the color of the sky to raise the stakes a little bit.
Okay.
I would probably want to have like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, almost like speed dating with the 10 people.
Okay.
And get a different sense from them, such that if I can apprehend any sort of weirdness with the person who's claiming otherwise, or I could just ask them. I would ask the other people who saw blue to ask the person who saw pink, and determine whether that person was colorblind. Because this is an interesting topic, because it is color itself. I know you guys have probably covered this topic, right?
Good call. So
yeah.
I like where you're going with this. So you would go to the other 9 people, and then the one who says that the sky is pink, and you'd be like, all right, I'm going to gather some data here and see who is able to corroborate each other's stories, maybe using some sense of like, this person seems trustworthy, whatever, that's okay. And then you go and you say, hey, one of you 9 people who can see the sky and who I trust, can you go to talk to the person who is telling me that the sky is pink and maybe figure out, are they colorblind? Is there something else going on? Are they looking at like a weird patch of sky that has pink in it? Like, can you tell me what's happening? All right, that makes perfect sense. That is a really rational way to go about that. My question now becomes, though, you are using, as you're calling it, faith in all of these circumstances because you do not have the ability to view the sky yourself. However, you are now using other tools in addition to that faith to determine the answer, to get the best and most accurate version of that answer, right?
Yeah, I would say I'm using other tools, but I'm also trusting those tools the same way I would trust an elevator. So, I mean, I guess we're getting into the crux of where does faith become trust, right? At what point does faith become trust, even in an instance where it's not absolutely certain, right? Like induction is like probabilistic, it's not certain. And so I would say some level of trust is there. But again, I would say that you're still putting faith in the people who are doing now the let's call it an experiment.
Yeah.
For you, right? You're kind of like now the question is, do I trust that they did the experiment accurately? And I think what we're pointing to is for different questions and different levels, let's say the stakes are higher or lower for any given proposition that we need to figure out. I think we kind of have a scale or a spectrum at which we kind of like just take the leap, right? Because the investment in what the sky color is less if it doesn't concern my safety, right? That's why I put the safety in there, right? But if we remove the safety, the person, you and I, if we're all the blind people in this scenario, let's say all 3 of us, you, me, you, and I'm sorry, your name.
Eric.
I forgot your name. Eric. We're all blind sitting at the corner, and we just kind of deliberate. There might be this point at which we just all kind of go, well, it's good enough, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
There's a moment where it's good enough, right?
Right. Exactly.
Right.
The question is, how do we get to good enough? And here's where I'm going to probably maybe get some people mad at me. But listen, JB, there's a nuance here that I don't think is normally brought into this conversation, which is we all do operate on faith. As an agnostic, I think that is the only way to operate because we don't have access to that capital T truth. That said, I think that we have developed really sound ways of using that faith and checking it and investigating it to get us closer to things that seem accurate to the most people. Okay, and so there is a difference, in my opinion, between somebody who says, I have faith that there is such a thing as gravity because, and then lists out the theory of gravity and the people who have tried to jump and fly and failed, and how planes work, and all of these things, all of which, granted, are still filtered through our subjective eyes and then processed in a brain that doesn't have access to capital T truth. But there's a difference between saying, I believe that gravity exists, and then going and saying, I believe that invisible dragons rule our country from the treetops, right? Because then you're like, okay, where are all of the checks and balances that apply to this belief? Can we do that here too? No? Okay, I'm putting less confidence in it. So yeah, on the base level, it is solipsism. What you are presenting to us is hard solipsism. And there's no argument for that because it's unfalsifiable. If you say that you are the only person with a consciousness in the universe, that's kind of where you're stuck. That's the end. That's it. You've gotten to the logical conclusion.
I agree. We both reject solipsism, hard or soft.
But what you're proposing is just solipsism using different words. And I'm saying that to an extent, I agree that it's impossible to prove things outside of our subjective experience. That said, we have ways of developing what is more likely and what is less likely. And that's what we focus on as skeptics.
I would make a distinction, though, that if you have faith, I would say we have faith in our own reasoning. And to an extent, we have faith in other people's reasoning. And I think because the moment you suppose there are other people, right, I don't believe you are me and that we're the same mind or brain or body in any way. But I do, to some extent, I will have faith in your reasoning, right? But faith in your own reasoning isn't evidence-based because we need faith in reasoning to even interact with evidence. And I think that's the fundamental core line of my argument isn't for solipsism in any way. If it came off that way, I reject that, and I'll re-examine how to present this without it going down to that conclusion, because I totally reject solipsism. But I do look at, from a very fundamental level, do we have faith in our reasoning? And to question it, you'd still be appealing to your reasoning, right? So I mean, I think reasoning
JB, can I
before interacting with evidence.
Yeah, JB. So I think you hit the nail right on the head. So what you're saying is faith. I call confidence.
Yeah, I would say confidence would be something you conclude after reasoning. Like, you don't just start with "I'm confident." You have to use induction and interactions, right? But then you have to believe in reasoning before you come to confidence.
Hold on. So let's take that specific example, because that starts getting really meta, and we can put that on the shelf and get there once we work out the nuts and bolts of belief and confidence. Because if you start talking about belief and confidence of confidence and confidence of belief without working those out, it gets really muddy really quick. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So putting that on the shelf for now. When I say that I have a degree of confidence in a thing, right? giving or getting evidence and evaluating that evidence can either raise or lower confidence in whatever the claim is. The conclusion, right? What I come to belief being the accepting of a thing as true, right? That is belief, accepting a thing as true, right? The confidence is just to the degree that you give the claim, right? How likely is it to be true? And so it does sound like you're saying that you're using the word faith in the way that I use confidence. And so just to cut those apart, I'm saying that faith is when there's not any evidence and you're still coming to the conclusion of belief, right? So if you have evidence, confidence? Hold on. If you receive evidence, then you are no longer in the faith realm, because faith is when there's no evidence and you're still accepting a thing to be true. If you're accepting a thing as true and there's evidence, it is no longer faith. It is now a conclusion, a belief that you've formed around evidence. You no longer need that faith. Faith is when there's nothing there. And so that's, I think, why we're not meeting in the same place. Do you have a better understanding of my definition now?
My question is, do you have confidence in your reasoning?
JB, do you understand my definitions now? I'm trying really hard to help resolve the miscommunication.
Yes, I understand your definitions.
Okay. Do I have confidence in my reasoning? Is that the question?
Mm-hmm.
Well, based upon the evidence, I do have a pretty good degree of confidence, yeah.
Did you need your reasoning to assess the evidence?
That's the problem of induction. Good job. That is not a point in anyone's favor. It's just a okay. So what?
I mean, do you see what I'm pointing to, though?
Yeah, you're pointing to a problem that everyone has and trying to mark that as a point in your side. I don't understand how that matters.
But no, it matters because the way you defined confidence versus faith, you would have to agree that reasoning is faith-based.
No.
You have to, based on your own definitions.
Okay, so hold on a second. Hold on. If I use my reasoning, right? If and by the way, I've developed my reasoning based on trial and error, right? I didn't have great reasoning to begin with, right? I developed that toolbox.
Circular. That's begging the question.
No, it's me telling you how it worked, how my life came to where it is.
Using reasoning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you to say you developed your reasoning without faith in reasoning
JB,
is begging the question.
No, it's the problem of induction, and I still don't understand why that matters to you.
Because the problem of induction is exactly what demonstrates the difference between faith and confidence in your definitions.
No,
and actually establishes that you have faith in your reasoning before you establish confidence.
No, you're imposing your definition of faith upon mine. Listen again.
Faith is the absence of evidence.
Right. So do you think
you have evidence? Do you have evidence for your reasoning? And you said I developed my reasoning, but I asked, you developed your reasoning using reasoning, right?
And that's the problem of induction. Good job. I'll give you a gold star. Now what? What is that?
Demonstrating that.
I really don't get it, JB.
What is your reasoning based in, if not faith?
It's based on trial and error. It's based on looking at the outcomes of things and then trying to understand those things and building a toolbox to better understand the world around you. It's epistemology.
That requires reasoning. Again, that requires reasoning.
Okay. Well, hold on.
JB, so it sounds like you're trying to push a gotcha in here.
I'm not. I'm just holding you to the problem that we're looking at.
Okay.
And you're
cool.
Trying to escape it.
No. So let me try this again. Do you think that the accumulated experience of my life, right, what I've used to sharpen my understanding of the world and to build that epistemology, do you think that that's nothing?
Nothing?
Yeah. Do you hold on. Do you think it is equivalent to nothing?
No.
Do you think it's equivalent to no evidence?
No.
So you agree that is evidence, right?
No.
Oh, so it's equivalent to no evidence. Pick one, JB. Is my life experience, is that evidence of the things that I've experienced, or is it equivalent to nothing?
No, your experience is faith-based.
It's so you're saying it's equivalent to nothing.
No, it's equivalent to faith. I don't discard faith.
I said
you guys
faith,
discard faith.
No, because faith is belief without evidence. So if you're
Yeah.
saying that my experience is equivalent to no evidence, then that's just your fucking pedo, dude.
No, I didn't say that.
No,
I didn't say,
you did. You need to think your words through.
No, I didn't say your experience is only faith.
No,
said your
I asked
experience-
you, JB, to answer the question. Is it equivalent to nothing?
No. And
Then
I said
it's
no.
not faith.
What? Nothing what? That
Right.
doesn't even mean anything, saying my experience is equivalent to nothing.
Sure.
That's not even a full question.
JB, because you're not listening. I'll say the whole thing again, okay? So faith is accepting something to be true without evidence, right?
Your experience.
Accepting something to be true without evidence is faith.
Do you have evidence of your experience, or do you believe it
JB,
without evidence?
I'm glad you're chomping at the bit, but if you don't give me some kind of affirmation that you understand what I'm saying, then you're just waiting your turn to talk at me, and this conversation's pointless. Try it again. Faith, right? You said you didn't understand. You said it didn't make sense, so I'm trying to describe it. Okay, JB, is faith belief without evidence?
Yes.
Okay. I said that I use my experience as evidence. Is my experience evidence? Yes or no?
You use your
Is
experience
my
as evidence.
experience evidence? Yes. Can it be bad evidence? Sure. But is my experience evidence?
No. I wouldn't
Okay.
say your experience is evidence.
Yes, it is evidence, or no, it is not?
No, I don't think your experience is evidence, because evidence,
Okay.
you have to...
Then
you have
then JB, if that's the
evidence
case,
is
the
something-
entire world is faith-based for you, and if that's it, then you've constructed a reality where there cannot be anything but faith.
I'm just curious what evidence is. So we've defined faith. Faith is belief without evidence. Okay, what is evidence? JB, how do you define evidence?
Evidence, I use evidence in a specific framework in empiricism and in science, that evidence is basically establishing causal relations in the physical world. No, it just doesn't apply to concepts that are required to pursue this methodology. It's just within a framework of science, which I value and everything like that. It's just that evidence would be something we manipulate, but I wouldn't say just because we have access to what we call evidence, it doesn't mean suddenly we give up or forfeit or somehow remove the faith in our interaction with the evidence. So evidence is like a category.
Right, I agree that it's a category. The thing is, the argument hasn't been about that this whole time. We haven't been arguing whether or not faith is necessary in addition to evidence. It seems like we've been arguing that faith and evidence are somehow mutually exclusive,
Yes.
or that evidence doesn't exist in the ways that we
Right.
understand it. So are you, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you're adopting a very strict, like, materialist, like, philosophically naturalist concept of evidence, where it is only physical and it only relates to cause and effect.
No, I'm borrowing. I'm basically I'm arguing within the materialist framework to make the distinction
but you're
between
not
evidence.
You're not a materialist?
No.
Okay.
I would say my definition is actually slightly different than your guys' definition. I would say.
Wait. We didn't give our definition. Do you think we're materialists?
No. From what I get, you guys aren't strict materialists. No.
Okay, cool. So that's why we've been having this argument, because we've been using a definition of evidence that was assumed without defining it, and none of us are strict materialists. So of course we're not going to agree on evidence.
Right. Yeah. My point of view is that if the discussion is about where is faith preferred over evidence, I guess over evidence, I would say I would agree with V, what you said kind of before generally, and you said you were going to get pushback, is that our general worldviews to start with have like sort of a bunch of presuppositions and suppositions that aren't evidence based
using a materialist worldview where evidence can only be observable in a lab, cause and effect, physical, empirical. Yeah. Okay. So I'm so confused now because it sounds like now we agree. Why? I think my question for this call is like, yes, we agree that we have other methods of determining which faith-based claims we gravitate to, and we seem to agree on what those are based on the conversation that we had about you being unable to see the sky and talking to 10 different people about it. We established that was evidence, and then we said no, it wasn't, because we were using a materialist version of evidence that none of us had said we ascribed to. So I guess this is a happy ending, maybe, JB? I think we agree.
I think you and I more so agree, and I think me and Eric less so agree, and there's just different distinctions that we probably won't get to the bottom of.
I would love to continue this conversation, especially because now that I know how you're using faith and how we are both using evidence.
No, you guys don't know my definition, so you speak for yourself.
We are both. I specifically said both to keep you separate.
Me and the cat, we're on this side.
Okay, so I want to know, using the definitions that both of us have and share in this moment, when faith sans evidence is preferable to faith plus evidence.
Can you repeat that question?
Belief.
So if we agree for this call that everybody operates on faith on some base level, and that evidence is not merely the materialist definition that you came in with, when is faith sans evidence preferable to faith plus evidence?
I think appealing to the laws of logic would be a good example of where we're not using evidence, but we're probably using some logical method to abandon the alternative because it's absurd.
Okay, so that's fair. I will grant you the laws of logic.
I would say meaning. We have to kind of establish meaning, and that comes into play, and meaning can change between words and cultures and things, and so there's some level of it's not evidence-based, it's agreement-based, and I don't know, I honestly don't know if I would categorize agreement as evidence. That would be a difficult task for me to try to make those one. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting conversation to have, and I think you should call back, because either we will continue this conversation and go deeper down this rabbit hole, which would be fun, or you and Eric can hash out where you guys actually disagree, because now that we have more definitions to work with, I think that will be easier. But JB, thank you for calling in. We appreciate the call.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye. You okay over there, buddy?
I had a lot I wanted to say. I will wait until next week.
Well, we are 45 minutes into that call, so I feel like we needed to move.
Okay.
Can we get you closer to the mic?
Yeah.
Thank you.
JB, call back in. And if here's a potential definition for evidence to jump on next week. Mm-hmm. A point of data in relation to a claim.
Oh, I like that. A point of data in relation to a claim.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm actually going to write that down for next week.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to, and let's go from there, because I think the argument can be made that I am defining faith out of existence in the same way that JB is defining faith as requisite for all understanding. And maybe that's unfair of me, but I think I need to play with that idea. Maybe I'll try and do that this week.
Cool. I think that would be a really interesting conversation. All right, before we close out, because, oh my goodness, we have callers and how much, like 20 minutes left? I do want to talk to Sajid in Canada.
Yay, Sajid. Are we saying your name right?
Yes.
Yay, Sajid!
All right,
I'm so glad
Sajid,
you
welcome
called.
back.
Thank you.
We would love to hear your argument for evidence for unseen beings.
Okay, sure. Well, obviously I'm a Muslim, so I believe in God and angels and the devil and things like that. I think there's two forms of evidence. There's subjective evidence and objective evidence.
Okay, what's the difference?
The subjective would be more like personal, experiential, like my own experiences of God and other people's experiences of God or miraculous events.
Okay.
Like objective evidence would be like the existence of love and beauty and evil and those kind of things.
You
Does that make
think?
sense?
Hold on. You think love and beauty are objective?
Yeah. I think for the most part, yes. For the most part, yes.
Interesting.
Okay. So how would you classify a group of people using their subjective experience to hone in on something that they could agree on was objective? Because I would imagine that that's how this works, right?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
So I'm trying to figure out where you would classify a group of subjective experiences that validate each other. Would that still be subjective, or would that move into objective territory? Is there a way to go from one to the other?
Oh. Could you give an example?
Sure. There are 10 people. 9 of them say the sky is blue. 1 of them say the sky is pink.
Yeah.
At what point, or is it possible for a subjective experience to become objective?
I think for a subjective experience to become objective, everyone would have to agree on the subjectiveness of the experience. I know it sounds like contradiction, but
No, that's
like for example,
yeah, that makes sense to me.
For example, like the experience of love, especially like overwhelming love in different religious traditions like Islam or Christianity or stuff like that. I think that points to a higher reality.
Okay, so the fact that so many people experience the feeling of love makes it objective versus, say, if one person...
Sorry. Especially, like, overwhelming experiences. Like I personally had an experience of, like, not too long ago of, like, overwhelming love and feeling like I need to tell everyone I love them and just extreme happiness and love.
Well, that sounds awesome for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a direction that I want to go real fast.
Okay.
Sajid, so what would then happen if a bunch of people had contradictory subjective experiences? So if we can move towards objective evidence by aggregating a lot of the same experience in a subjective place, what would happen if people subjectively experienced contradicting things?
To provide another example? Or
Sure.
Are you going to go back to the sky thing?
Well, I mean, it's a good baseline. Say 10 people say the sky is 10 different colors.
Right.
At what point do we decide that subjective evidence is not as reliable because it contradicts with each other?
Right. I think then you'd have to move into like more objective things, like maybe like, I don't know, stuff like fine tuning of the universe or the existence of suffering and stuff like that.
Okay, so the goal is to move towards objective and away from subjective then. Is that correct?
I'd say objective is probably stronger than subjective.
I agree. Okay, I wanted to get the subjective piece out of the way before we dove in, just because I think we could go down a rabbit hole that wouldn't be helpful. So let's stick with objective for now.
V?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you
Okay.
understand what Sajid means when he says subjective?
Yeah, personal experience.
Okay. Got it. And objective is not personal experience.
Correct. It's well, we've established that you can move from subjective experience and evidence into objective if enough people corroborate it.
Okay.
It can become an objective thing.
Okay. So it says in the notes that it says evidence for unseen beings, such as miraculous experiences. So it sounds like you're queuing up this statement of a bunch of people's subjective experiences of an unseen being and miracles kind of collectively validating an objective statement that those unseen beings and miracles happened. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, cool. So I think V, you already answered that. There are so many conflicting accounts of all of those things that I don't think that you could corroborate or validate any objective statement about miracles or unseen beings.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Like conflicting miracles, like miracles of Mary for Catholics and miracles of the Buddha for Buddhists, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if that's the case,
Yeah,
then
go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
To my own, what I believe is the revelation from God, which is the Quran.
Okay.
And if we're going by subjective evidence, okay, that's fair. I believe that you have had subjective experiences that you are counting as evidence towards this belief. But we have established that the way we get to objective evidence, which is something that would be convincing to people who do not have your subjective experience, we would need a lot of corroboration from other people's subjective evidence. But what we've found from talking with people from all belief systems, we had someone call in who said that he saw, which goddess just showed up at his door?
Freya, I think.
Freya?
I think it was Freya.
Yeah, we've had people call in with their subjective experiences offering evidence for gods that would contradict yours. So on the objective side of things, we're seeing a lot of conflicting subjective evidence, which is making it difficult for us to agree with you that your beliefs are correct. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, honestly, for me, it's going to come down to subjective, but
I wonder why.
It's tricky.
Why?
Tricky.
Why would it come down to subjective evidence in this case?
Like I said, it's my own personal experiences, and I believe that I don't know.
If you had objective evidence, would that be preferable?
If I want to convince more people, probably would be.
No, would it be preferable in convincing yourself?
I mean, I think it would add more weight to my belief, probably.
Absolutely. If you were walking around with a miracle that you could show people, an ongoing miracle in a bottle that you could go, hey, here is objective evidence of the power of the deity that I'm talking about, right?
Well, I believe the Quran is a miracle. So.
Okay. I think that's very flowery language, but I think that kind of confuses things in the example that I'm giving.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I actually think that's a great example now that I think about it, because a Quran, I believe, was written by men. It was not written by any divine force. And because of that, I couldn't hold the Quran up, and upon investigation of the book itself, not necessarily the writing, you'd argue with that, but like, I'm saying a miracle in a bottle. It's indisputable. There's objective evidence of a miracle. You would prefer that. I know that you would prefer that. I would prefer that.
Right.
The fact that that's not preferable means that you're not in a good position here. And just to like put a bow on this, right? How many people are going to disagree about, like, if I make a turkey sandwich and we decide to, validate that turkey sandwich is there on the counter, right? I think that is objective evidence of the turkey sandwich. We have much better evidence of something like a turkey sandwich when it comes to objectivity than we do of the God claims. And that's where I think we should contextualize it. If we have more evidence of a turkey sandwich than we do of a God, then we should probably put a God somewhere below a turkey sandwich when it comes to us accepting it as real.
I can see where you're coming from with that, yeah.
And you know what? If I were still a believer, I would be massively offended by that statement. The fact that you are as kind as you are makes me so happy that you call in.
That last call is quite something.
Oh my goodness. Just a little bit of a roundabout run around the block with that guy.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you get transcendental argument. By the way, for people who don't know what that was the transcendental argument for the existence of God. That is presuppositional apologetics. If you want to look up Bonson, if you want to look up people like Darth Dawkins and other people who really, really like to stick their heads up their own asses, that is the argument for you. Sorry, I could Vanna White the.
Oh my goodness.
Transcendental argument.
Sajid,
Sajid, don't ever go down that road. Promise me. Promise me you will never go down that road. Please. You're the chosen one. You're supposed to bring balance to the force. Don't do it.
Sajid, I think I want to dive into this more, but we are also almost at time. So for whenever you have the chance to call back, we will make sure to prioritize your call if you want to call back and continue. Because I think we could have a really good conversation about this, and we've only just scratched the surface. So thank you for calling in and giving us something cool to chew on.
Oh, yeah.
And we'd love to hear back from you.
Well, now I want a turkey sandwich.
I kind of
Right,
do too.
same. I'm a little hungry now. All right. Thanks, Sajid.
Wait, bye.
That's a sweet guy. I disagree with him, obviously, but...
I feel like we could have a really fruitful conversation, though.
Yeah.
I would really love to know more about the difference between subjective and objective and how he gets from one to the other.
The way he used them, it sounded like categories that were entirely unto themselves and couldn't move from one to the other. I appreciate the questions you asked because it was definitely coming across to me as non-overlapping magisteria.
Oh gosh, yeah. All right, you guys. We do have 2 more callers, but they both have such interesting questions that I would be very sad to rush through them.
Oh, Steven, I didn't read what the note was. Oh, Steven, call back. What does Nick say?
Nick also has an interesting question about...
Yes!
Yeah.
Oh!
All right. You guys...
call early.
Please
early,
do call
damn
back.
it. Please. Call before the show
We would love
starts.
to talk with you.
Yes.
All right. Let's dive into Super Chats real fast. We got quite a few today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. And there were some interesting ones, too, so I'm excited about this. Janet Moorcraft sent $19.99.
Yay,
thank you, Janet. And says, what do you love about each other?
You go first.
I love the fact that I have a partner who is so safe and warm and comforting that our cat can decide that she just wants to be asleep in his lap the entire show. If you are not watching this on YouTube, if this is a podcast, just do yourself a favor, go check out the episode because Moko has been just like dead asleep on his lap the entire episode.
She's been covered up by the lower.
I know.
So I was like, just kind of making it go away shortly for a little bit to kind of let people know Moko is still there.
All right, your turn.
Oh my gosh.
Put us on the spot.
V, I love that you make me want whatever's coming in the future. And that hasn't always been the case in my life. But I love that whatever's going to happen, we're going to do that together.
Aw. Janet, you little softy. All right, your turn.
Insomnia Doodle sent $5 and says, been a while since I've called in, but I lurk a lot. Yes, we appreciate you. And today I discovered that this stream pairs perfectly with lo-fi, it is getting cut off, lo-fi girl and Inktober.
Oh, that sounds like a glorious morning.
Very nice, 100%. Nice.
I like it. I fully endorse both Lo-Fi Girl and Inktober. I'm also doing Inktober this year, so that's fun.
Yeah.
Sarah Dye sent $20. Thank you, Sarah. Says, I enjoyed the show and would like to ask what you each like about autumn.
I hate summer. If anything, the fact that it means the end of summer is good enough. I like so much more than that. I like... I'm sorry, I need to leave you a couple of things.
Go for it.
I like unpacking the jackets and the jeans, and I look good in long sleeve shirts, and getting to put on the long sleeves. I love being able to build fires in the fireplace. And V, I'm going to steal all of them, so you give a couple.
Rain. I like rain, and I like it when people don't look at me weird for ordering a hot coffee.
Fair enough.
Because there is no way I'm not drinking hot coffee. It can be 100 degrees out, but...
Moldred sent $10. Thank you, Moldred, and says, human beings seem to have an almost unlimited capacity to deceive themselves, and to deceive themselves into taking their own lives for truth.
Their own lies.
Their own lies. It's kind of far for me. Thank you. Their own lies for truth.
I mean, fair.
Yeah, Artie, that's a good quote.
Amit sent $5. Thank you, Amit. Says, appreciate Eric going through the experience to evidence thing. I didn't follow the details until then, and that simplification made it understandable. That's great.
Yeah. Be aware that people who really, really dive into philosophy are going to take that as a step 1 on 500 and lurk more. There's so much further to go. I did not do that as good a service as I wished. Sorry. Moldred. Thank you, Moldred. Send another $5. Says, I cannot experience your experience. You cannot experience my experience. We are both invisible people. Another R.D. Laing quote.
Interesting.
Thank you.
I don't know. That's poetic. I don't know if I agree with lack of experience subjectively equaling invisibility, but that's interesting.
That definitely kind of summarizes the viewpoint of that caller, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Kendall Brast sent $5. Thank you, Kendall, and says, so what exactly is the cat's name?
Okay, so we're Star Trek fans, and when we first adopted her, we named her Empress Philippa Georgiou. And she has one eye and
when we got
sinuses.
to the shelter, she was ruling the roost. Like, if another cat came by her, she would and they'd run away. So we were like, oh, she's the little pirate. She's intimidating. Right?
Yeah. And then when we brought her home, we realized that she's just sneezy all of the time.
She's just a goofy little cuddle bug.
Yeah, who sneezes. She has, because whatever damaged her nose also damaged her, her sinuses in a way that she's just going to have the sniffles chronically. And she's our little mocosa. And so we started calling her Moco. And that's her name.
Yeah, so for those of you who, like me, did not get it at first, Moco is booger in Spanish.
She's our little booger.
So, yeah. Eric proposed it about a month in, hey, I think we should call her Moco. And I was like, done. Yes, let's do it. So
she's been our little goblin ever since.
Oh, snot goblin.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just 3 callers, but really good ones.
Good ones, yeah.
Really good callers. We hope they all call back.
Hey, everybody, do us a favor. Before you do anything else, hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. So the algorithm is not digging our niche right now. So we need help to get out there. If you're listening to this as a podcast, please, if you get the chance, leave a review. those things that are going to get us back into viewers, because
The good
it's-
graces of the algorithm.
Yeah, because right now it's doing us dirty. So we need your help.
Thank you in advance. And until next time, we're glad we had this talk.